that good? Okay, so hello everyone. This is another one of the departmental safety days, which the safety committee and I would say Kendra mostly was involved in putting together. So this one we're lucky to have Neil Carlson, who is going to talk to us about ergonomics and laboratory ergonomics, which is an important topic that we haven't covered before at a departmental sort of safety day or any other sort of previous times. So we're looking forward to learning from Neil about this topic that is going to affect us all. Okay, thanks, Neil.
Yep. See if I can get to my right here. There. Move this over here. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. This talk will cover both home ergonomics, office ergonomics, and then laboratory ergonomics. We're going to start out with a home/office hybrid, and then we're going to switch over to laboratory. So we're going to talk about incorporating movements, exercises, taking breaks, and then some lab ergonomic tips. The main thrust to our ergonomic program is to make people's lives less miserable, one person at a time. We had a discussion before here, and some people are engaged in making people's lives miserable. I'm engaged in trying to make people's lives less miserable. So I think if you take some of these actions that we go through, you'll have a chance to be less miserable. So remember Fripper. If some of you were watching TV in the 1970s, I know I was, many of you weren't even born yet. You were just a little pre-DNA molecule. So remember Fripper. Flipper was the intelligent dolphin. Fripper is force, repetition, posture, exercise, and rest. Does somebody have a pen here? Yeah. You just hand me that. Okay. All right. So force can be illustrated real simply. Take this edge of the pen, press it very hard against my hand. I have a very difficult time injuring myself. However, if I do this and jab it right in here, blood will spurt out. Why? Because I'm concentrating the force in a small area. So really tiny areas of force are incredibly important in ergonomics. Thank you very much. So posture, exercise, and rest. We're going to talk a lot about posture. The exercise is important. Rest, I'm not going to cover a lot, but making sure you get adequate sleep, really nice for overall health, and reducing lab errors. And people are tired, make mistakes. And I respond to those mistakes, and they aren't pretty. So choosing your workplace. Work in neutral if possible. So this is fairly straightforward. For those of you here, I want you to stand up. So take your hands and just wiggle out a little bit, and then put your hand like this, like you're holding a serving platter or a big extra box of pizza, just like that. This is a neutral position. Elbows coming right off the shoulder, hands out like this, flip them over. That's how you're typing. Now, this isn't actually the most neutral position. The most neutral position is like this. Put your hands like this, go like this. Make grip, go here, and make a fist. Go here, go back, go here. Feel better here or here. For most people, it's like this. That's a more neutral position. So you're actually stressing your body when you're typing. Okay, you can sit down. So keyboard should be about elbow height. And legs, the knee and the hip parallel to the floor, roughly. You can modify it off of that, but generally if you're in that position, you're at reduced risk. So Choosing your work surface, you have to have clearance for legs. A lot of laboratories are not designed for having adequate clearance of legs. We're going to show some pictures of that. But a lot of times there's the edge, and then there's a drawer that's underneath that makes it impossible to work there while seated. Height allows for the elbows to be at table height and relaxed. Screen position should allow neck to be neutral. The neutral position of the neck is, think about your head being a bowling ball on top of a little top of the spine. So here's this bowling ball. It's a smaller bowling ball. It's one for not these big ballers that have the 16 pounders, about a 9-pound bowling ball. On top, you want the bowling ball to be right on top of the spine, not back like this or not forward like this. And if you observe your co-worker at a computer station in the afternoon, the bowling ball is forward because they're tired. When you have that, you bring the screen closer, so the bowling ball has to go back up straight. So avoid a C-shaped couch surfing. So this is for people at home. So what is a C shape? A C shape is the classic golfer position like this, or Mr. Burns from Simpsons and walks around like that. That's a C shape. You want to have an S shape, so the lumbar, touch your belly button. Your lumbar is exactly the same height off the ground as your belly button. So that should be a curve. Okay, you don't want it like this. You want the curve right in here. Okay. Soft pillows aren't the best idea because they'll start to heat up on the laptop, and watch out for glare from windows. So here's the table surface problem. What do you see as problematic here? This is how I started out, and I started to have problems on different parts of my body. Where would I feel the pain? Neck, possibly, yep. Where else?
The back, maybe?
Possibly. Hips. Are my legs at, is this at a 90-degree angle?
No, you're up on your
No. There's some other things. So let's take a look at what we had. We had shoulder strain because my arms are up like this. They aren't relaxed. They're up like that. And I was trying to resolve that problem. I couldn't, and this was very tight. Screen angle was a bit low. Fortunately, I have bifocals, but for someone else without bifocals, that would be a little bit too low. And I needed foot support and the wrist problems using the laptop mouse. I don't know if any of you use that a lot, but it hurts a lot. Get an external mouse. Don't work off the laptop. So, other problem, the table was too high and too thick. Most dining room tables are that. They're about 29.5, and unless you're really tall, I think you're probably the only one who might solve it. The rest of you, you're in trouble. So sometimes that helps out, other times not so much, but in that case it helped out. So how do we solve that problem? Well, we throw in a TV tray, just a simple TV one. Bring the laptop down to the height that accommodates most individuals. It may be a little too low for some, but you'll know if it's too low because your wrists will be down like this. If it's right, be right at a right angle, like that. The other place you can do that, if you get a big enough one, you can just use that for keyboard and mouse, have that down there, throw the screen up higher. A lot of modifications. You can also have a folding TV tray. Most problems with the couches, if you're working off a couch, the couch is too deep. So you need lots of pillows to support your back to avoid, again, the Mr. Burns seat. And it should be at least 26 inches wide. This one's a little narrow at about 21, should be about 26 inches wide. So the neighbor was tossing out some equipment and I snatched it up, and this is my home ergonomics. Very nice, very simple, works for me. It'd be better if it was height adjustable, but it's not bad. It'd also be better if it was sit stand, but haven't paid the money for that, and I move around quite a bit in my job. So adjusting your chair should have a firm back, arm support, relaxed shoulders, proper width, proper depth, not too deep, and good lumbar support. Some people have to modify their chairs, and this is what they do. They're uncomfortable, so they add things onto it, and At this point, I would get a new chair. The only thing that's not missing from here is that as this particular model chair ages and it goes through different humidity cycles, that cap will start splitting. Yes,
Are there suggestions that you have for certain types of chairs? Because here, obviously here we have maybe limited selection if we're already put into an office, obviously. We can go to the reuse center and fix stuff out. They sometimes have something, but are there suggestions that you for chairs that kind of baseline and then upgrade a level?
yeah. We just got a new set of chairs that are available from Steel Case. It's called Series 1, which indicates to you it's not a highfalutin chair because the other ones have all these really cool names. So Series 1 chair under $500, which still probably is pretty high for you, but let's just say the migration of chair prices has gone up $100 to $200 in the course of the pandemic. But it's a nice one. It fits most people. Not so good for you, sorry. It's small. But the rest of you probably fit okay in it. And they're all available at our ergonomic showroom. So if somebody wanted to come on over on a Thursday, 10 to noon, you can try it out. I won't be there next Thursday, but the following one, and I have a colleague, Tara Smith, who's there. But, and you need to find out, do I need this to be lab or do I need it to be office? If it's lab, it has to be cleanable surface. It's office, yes.
I was just gonna say, will you bring up in your presentation about the showroom that you have?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
It's in W37 Boynton Health Service. I'll talk to it right now. And we've got a wide selection of chairs for a wide selection of different body types. And we also have sit stand. We have a full complement. So here's a simple part of chair depth. 2 or 3 fingers from the back of the calf. That's about the best setup. If it's too much, then what we're doing is we're putting all the force, looking at force again, on a smaller part of your leg. You want to distribute the force over a wider area to minimize the stress. And that's what we did. Just most of them now have sliding seat pins. There are some that don't. The next one is how to set up a sit-stand workstation. Most people get a sit-stand workstation and they align the surface of the sit-stand workstation with the other part of the desk, and they end up not using it right. And we end up with this problem with the T-Rex. So you're like this, you're too low, and you're working on that. Now, if you look up here at the T-Rex with the Mardi Gras beads, it's overlooking me saying, come on, dude, you don't have it right. So you need to lower this down. So don't use this as a balance point. Bring it down lower so it's right at elbow height, or you have keyboards already pull up, or you raise yourself up and put a footrest. Lots of different ways to fix the problem. So how do we accommodate dinosaurs? Well, it's difficult. So in this particular case, we're looking at a really nice setup. The next one, we got 2 problems. What are the 2 problems for dinosaur B? Screen is a little bit too low. You'll see a problem later on where it's much lower. What else?
His feet are limited to park.
Right, he needs a footrest, definitely. And what else? It's not too bad. This is completely different than what we've talked about before.
Is he facing the window?
Yeah, so he's getting lots of glare. So when you're looking at a window, your iris is going really small, but when you want to look at the screen, it has to go big, and this will give you a headache because you're trying to look at 2 things at once. So minimize. It can also happen if your light that you're looking at right here is coming right in your eyes while you're looking at the monitor. So here's a mouse setup. Where is she going to feel the pain? Shoulder, and where else? Yeah, this is called a Supreme. Remember, stop in the name of love, whatever. That's what happens. You do not want to have a Supreme. You want this to be neutral. So after a trip to a local tiny library, which happened to be in that office, totally cool. So we got a trip to, and we got it in a neutral position, and she has a new life that she was given. Really nice. Happy story. Now, on to less happy stories. Stand or die. Sitting is killing you. I actually wrote a parody paper and I could send it to you if you'd like about Guy Sadiq, the sadistic ergonomist from Montreal, Canada. And he is sit to or which means stand or die. But the USA reports that prolonged sitting is linked to breast cancer, colon cancer. Sit less than 1 hour time stretch. You should move and not sit too much. James Levine, thin people sit 120 minutes less than people that have more weight. Standing burns 50 calories more per hour than sitting. A beautiful study was done in England with the double-decker buses. One person drives the bus, the other person takes tickets. The person driving the bus, 5-year shorter lifespan than the person walking. Really straightforward, same location, just different activity.
That's
Yes,
just a ratio of sedentary versus activity, right?
yeah,
Okay.
very straightforward. Just, and it's a nice control because you have it in the same work environment. It's not like I'm comparing somebody over here and here. Real interesting. So, summary, people who sit less and move more live longer, healthier lives. Real straightforward. So, let's look at Susonian ergonomics. This is over at West Bank office building, and the person sits like that or stands like that and then sits like this and just flops the mouse and keyboard back and forth. Desperate people do desperate things. So here's a home office. Here's the first setup. And this is again COVID. My boss said you cannot come in. I said, okay. So I had to work here. And what's a problem here? The screen is way too low. Yep. And now my dog comes in and gives me some helpful suggestions. So I bring it up a little bit. It's still probably a little bit low. And then we bring it up even more. And then it's a little bit better. It's still not perfect, but it's better than what it was before. So we got a large study for Stand and Move with Arizona State University, got $1.5 million to kind of mess around and figure it out. We used a WorkFit T. The problem with as a accommodation, the problem with the WorkFit T is this only goes down to desk height. So we had a dickens of a time trying to get the chair up, and we used lots of footrests and everything else to accommodate it. We really advocated with a local company, which was Ergotron, to make things better, and they came up with the WorkFit TX. The TX, this will go below the surface. They have enough weight on here so it's counterbalanced, and this is also height adjustable. Excellent design, really works for retrofitting existing desks. Then if you want to exercise, very straightforward, get like a New Balance stepper and you do the cha-cha. Now, when you're doing the cha-cha, I was doing it all wrong, and my teacher here at the U, in our ballroom dance class, I was going like this. He said, no, you keep the shoulder straight and you move the hips. So when you're moving the hips, as you do the cha-cha, that's what you want to do here, because if you bounce up and down, then the screen's going up and down. So keep your shoulders level and do the cha-cha. So we're going to talk about, again, force, repetition, posture, exercise, rest. Remember Flipper again. So let's look at wrist postures. This is neutral. So you just put your hand out like this. That's your neutral position. Now let's go through the non-neutral positions. Flexion. It's almost like a bird thing. So flexion, T-Rex, or this is a different one. This is the Supreme. And then we have, I want to make sure I got it right. This is ulnar deviation, in other words, toward the pinky, and radial deviation toward the thumb. So if you're in any one of those positions, that will cause problems. So you're trying to keep it neutral. And we'll show that a lot more when we hit into the lab area. So keys to lifting, broad base of support, tighten stomach. That is your back belt, or your belt that you have on. You have it built in here. Do some core exercises to make this strong. That stabilizes the spine so you don't end up with a back injury. Use one arm as a strut support. So one arm strut support is like this, going down, making a triangle, or golfer, like that. Any one of those, very helpful. So The other part is the communication is bad. Every time I try to communicate with somebody and they respond back to me, it's not exactly what I intended. So we need to be very clear about the communication. If you have a problem, do you know who you talk to? In other words, I'm in pain, talk to the supervisor, and then they start to make an accommodation, make it changed, because these things will not self-correct. You'll need an outside person coming in and modifying the environment, otherwise you will get worse. And some of the things are permanent. So most of you are younger than I am. So it would be nice for you to still have ability to use everything when you get older. Otherwise, you can be severely limited. So take care of it. This is the injuries at Berkeley Lab. Lots of different ones: slips, trips, falls, moving heavy objects, office ergonomics, slipping on wet floor, broken, crushed bones, car accidents, etc. So there's a lot of different ways people can get hurt. So again, communication, need to have that, and some basic lift training. So ergonomic design, heavy stuff in the strike zone right here. This is where you have all the heavy stuff and you want to move it. You don't want to do a lot of vertical or up like this. Keep things in that range. If it's really heavy, team lift or move on something with wheels. And fit the work to the person, not the person to the work, and have variety. So new construction, when I talk about new construction, I've been in a couple of jobs. They'll have a really nice spot for a lavatory, but then they have a veneer so that everything matches up with the drawers. And or the drawer has a veneer that's 6 inches thick and it's only about this deep with actual stuff. Rip the drawer out, allow a person to work underneath it. So if we're going to look at this, we prioritize areas of high-risk risk, and determine a procedure for evaluating space. In other words, you contact our department, will help you out. And we have central matching funds to help out 20%. If there's disability, it's 40%. If it's workers' comp, 100%. So if we're going to exercise, why do we exercise? We want to have fun. We want variety. We want it to become a habit, so there's no willpower needed. And this experiment, it's in a marathon, not a sprint. We are not going to be dragsters. Now, I talked about a person that used to drive these and said this was a lousy design. Why was this a lousy design?
When you look at it.
It's more than that. Think about visually. What do modern dragsters have that this one doesn't? Let's say you're sitting in there. What do you see? What's in your field of view? The engines. You have to look around the engine to drive. And also, this is really hot. So you have this hot air, plus you're looking around the engine and you're going really fast. So most of them have the engine in back. Now, the rest of us, a little more sedate, like the old REO Speedway. This is at the North Dakota State Fair. So the older body needs a lot more routine maintenance. An older car needs more frequent oil changes. People who are older, you have to do a lot of things to make sure you stay flexible, because if you don't, you'll get rigid and you won't be able to have the range of movement that you like. So we have to work on it works. And it's involved with SCARF. So it's strengthening, conditioning, aerobic exercise, and flexibility. So we're going to start doing some exercises. For first part, we're going to be seated and then we're going to be standing. So shoulder shrugs. So you go up and down, up and down. Then you do shimmy, just for fun. Okay. Then you have shoulder rolls like this. And come back. And then cactus. Okay, hands like this. You ready? And up like that. See, penguins. Perfect. All right. Now, extension and flexion, you can stand up now. So extension and flexion is hands like this. And then flexion like that. This is some the same exercise that you do for ASL people who are trying to flex. So when their hands are in good shape, they can do signing. Then working out at work, we're going to do stretch like this. And go like that. And then this is called the Toby stretch. So you're going up to Duluth, you decide to imbibe some calories, and you get out of the car and you go like this. All right. And then we've talked about the golfer and everything else. So you can sit down. So if you're gonna do change, there are 5 P's that are involved. And most of us get stuck at number 1, which is ponder. It's like, well, you know, let's just think about this. I think we should raise awareness. Yeah, let's spend years raising awareness. You need to start doing things. So there's prep, perspire, actually doing it, persevere. That's where you experiment. That's what a lot of things are, is experimentation, and persist in doing maintenance. But don't get stuck on level 1 or level 2, because nothing ever gets done. Now, snack prevention. We do have warning signs for snack prevention. This is the one. It says, do not touch this. Not only will this kill you, it will hurt the whole time you're dying or more. So healthy snacks are really helpful, and trying to incorporate that. Then there's also mental health. What do you do to stabilize yourself so you don't go crazy and start bothering your coworkers? We're attempting to get funding for a walking green study. They've done interesting parts where people will exercise in an urban environment, exercise in a environment with a lot more green. The people that are in the green environment, lower blood pressure, lower blood sugar, and they're doing the same amount of walking. We're trying to figure out why. I think it might be related to higher particle levels and more noise, which is causing stress. So now let's roll into the computer in the lab. Where is this person going to feel pain? You got the mouse up there. She got the keyboard down here. Where's she going to feel pain? Her wrist, and where else? And shoulder. This would be the graph of the shoulder activity. When you have the mouse up high, it's constantly engaged, so the muscles are constantly working to try to stabilize that position, and you're going to have a shoulder problem. If you bring it down again to this relaxed level, then there's the shoulder muscle activity. Everything's stabilized, you aren't overworking. The way we've designed computers is people in finance rule the way we design computers, so they have a 10-key pad. The 10-key pad makes your arm go out to the side. If, however, you switch over to the left side, it's right there. You can also remove the 10-key pad, get a different one that has it there, but you don't want to have your arm out here to stress it. I advise people to have 2 mice, one on both sides, so you can give one hand a break. It takes approximately 7 days to develop the ability to do it on the left-hand side. It's just like riding a bike. It takes a while. You'll be frustrated, get past the frustration, and then it's better. So this is what I talked about when saying, if you're mousing like this and you're doing this, you're going to get a lot of stress. You mouse like this, pivot from here, a lot less stress. So this one is a very popular one that we have. It's in 2 sizes, and you just measure the distance here. My hand's about average, so if it's smaller than my hand, you need the small one. If it's bigger, you need the bigger one. So laptop use. Again, we're going to talk about different creatures using laptops. And we alluded to it earlier. For dinosaurs, especially the ones of the carnivores, the laptop is really low. It's still a bit too high for them. Now, the casual raccoon at a very nice, posh Caribou coffee, it works out right. So you have to think about that. No, labs, computers in labs. So this facade here makes it impossible to sit at this station. So I have ripped out those front edges on many of them to make sure it's okay for people to work there. Chair should be height adjustable, back support, desk or stool height. Now we're going to get into pipetting. I was going to help out with the mycology group on pipetting. They had old pipettes. I worked there for an hour on it and just shot my wrist. I said, I can't do it. So having an electric pipetter is a really good idea. The other problem is, look at this gentleman right here, a lot of tension. This is not too bad. She's got actually a better wrist angle. So here's real subtle things you can do to help out with pipetting. One is a tube holder. I want you to look at the position of the wrist here when you're interacting with it there. And we did a subtle change here. We just tilted the angle of the tubes. So you're coming at it like this instead of going like this. Keep it again at neutral, real straightforward. Another one. We did the same thing here, and I'll do a little bit closer look at it. So here is, we're bringing it down, problems, we're having that ulnar deviation. Here, no ulnar deviation, straight on, just by tilting this. And then I have some tips on pipetting, and there are several different types of pipetting, ergonomic pipettes, depending on setting it up, making sure. A lot of wrist problems associated, particularly with the older style. It's worth investing in it, particularly you have some really, we also did this microscope setup, but I mean, we have people over in vet school, tons of education, really smart, and they're looking at things under the scope. If they can't do the scope work, they are useless. They have all this brain power, but they can't look at the scope. So we made sure that their stations are adjustable. So here are the ergonomic pipettes, low force pipetting, work in a neutral position, try alternative models, but there are a lot of different models. Find one that works for you. There's multiple finger release and thumb release, and consider an automatic pipetter. So here's microscope work. I do a lot of this for part of my job because I do fungal identification. This is actually a pretty nice setup. Knee, hips, footrest, works pretty good. Having an adjustable eyepiece, spending the extra money for that, it's also helpful. Biological safety cabinets. They're problematic, especially some of the older ones, and the way the design is, so you have to reach in fairly far. Here are some of the things that you need to do with biological safety cabinet. If you can, if you're ordering new, get one that's height adjustable. Get good light clearance, reduce the depth of the front end grill, but still allows it to form the function to keep the product and you safe, keep glare off the glass and wear proper PPE. So we're talking about knee space again. Here's the problem. Now here's the subtle part. This is a T-molded edge. Right here, pain right along that edge. If you round off that edge, it's less painful. So we maximize this person's pain. The way we resolve this is getting rid of that drawer, and then we raise the person up. She's still T-rexing. Anti-fatigue mats, get one that's washable, it's appropriate for it, not slippery. Very helpful for reducing problems with feet. Microtomes are hard. It's best if you can get one that's foot operated, but doing this over and over is really bad for the wrist and things like that. Very problematic. So if you can get a foot operated one, that's the way it would go. Cell counters. Have an automatic one, or using that finger, you can wear it out, maneuver it around as best as possible. With a cryostat, make sure it's foot operated. And the next one we're going to look at is a little more problematic. It's called the flow cytometer. These are often old style, so they all have these very thick setups, hard to work with. Fortunately, the amount of time typing on here is limited. So have it set up so you're doing minimal there, have a different place to do your regular computer work. For glove boxes, a different style chair is set up. So this is kind of a modification of what you think about it as like a almost like a massage chair where you've got your face planted in there and you're getting some support here. This has got support here for the belly, so it's like the chair is reversed, and then you can work in the glove box. Centrifuge rotors, these can be very heavy. Use a team lift or have some sort of harness to lift them out because that's real problematic. And then don't carry it around, move it on the cart. Like some of these contain biological organisms and you don't want them to spill anyway, so be careful. Overhead lifting. Light items high, light items, bulky items that aren't so heavy low, heavy items in the strike zone. Use a step stool with anti-skid. Order items in lighter quantities. Sometimes it's cheaper to buy it in bulk quantities, but you get it in bulk, it's heavier, we have more injuries. So try to have it smaller or transfer it out into smaller containers when you're actually using it. Make sure you transfer the label so you don't have any compliance with employer rights. No. And keep heavy items just on wheels. Don't bother putting it on swaps, just have it on a wheel. For deep sink wells, put a container in there so you don't have to go as far down into it, so you can be more correct while you're working with it. Laboratory carts. Get your Art Deco laboratory carts, well designed. They aren't so nice. Have something like that, rounded edges, able to handle the weight of the product and have edges on it so that the object doesn't fall off. Now we're going to get to wild rice ergonomics. This is up at, I think, North Central Experiment Station. So they have to add fertilizer to it. So this is how he was doing it. He added a tube, and now I can stand up while he does it. Very simple modification. Now we're going to get an excruciatingly difficult ergonomic quiz. Find the problem, come up with solutions. Remember that people do tasks with tools and environment. So here's the material handling setup. And here I was helping out my sister-in-law at her work environment, and this was one of their workers that was having back problems. Why is this person having back problems? What?
Their back is hunched over.
The back is hunched over.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
C-shape.
C-shape. Okay, yeah. Thank you. Yep. And so how do you resolve that? What you said?
Sit down or bring it up, bring it to the table.
Yeah, bring the table up, and a real simple solution was just to add a box. But yeah, bring the table up so that you got the S shape versus the C shape. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out what. That's okay. So I will look at another virtual human being. Where's the pain point?
Shoulder.
Shoulder, correct. Yeah. Just hold your arms up like that. When you're looking at somebody, you're saying, well, where's the pain? You hold your arms away. Ah, this hurts. Because you're holding up like that. It's kind of the zombie problem. Yeah, it is. Or Frankenstein, one of the two. Now, actually, zombie is also really helpful too, because your computer, put your arms out like this. That's about how far the computer screen should be away. Like this, like that. If it's further, then the tendency will be for you to lean forward and you'll have problems. You bring it closer. Now I want you to name 2 pain points in this one. Another virtual human being.
Yes.
Wrist, definitely. And where else? Just assume that position. Where do you feel pain? Shoulders, yeah. So there's shoulders and wrist. Now, the next one is a little tougher. I want you to tell me which one will have more problems. This one here? Why? Yeah, looking down, yeah, the screen is lower for that one. They both have wrist problems. Both like that, but this one, the monitor is a little bit lower. And I actually used the prompt telling it to put it in the right height, but the AI didn't understand, so I can use this.
Yeah.
Now, this one is real subtle, and I really don't know the answer to it, so we can have a debate. Which one is a little bit better? Which one? The girl? Not really sure. I'm a little nervous about this because if her arms are in tight like that, I'm worried that that elbow might drop below here. But I'm not 100% sure. This person's right at the neutral height. It's looking pretty good. The screen might be down a little bit for him, so we got both of them that aren't quite right. So a lot of times when you see somebody like that, okay, I think the height's right, but you want to make sure they get the elbow right underneath the shoulder to make sure. So this one's really, I threw it in here because it's kind of ambiguous and you need to kind of work through it. So with ergonomic problems and solution, every yay has a boo. That means every positive thing that you think you're doing, there's always a dark side or something else that's a negative consequence of that. There are many solutions to the same problem. Experiment, evaluate the outcome, and ask an ergonomist for assistance. So every problem can be and this one won't show up for them, but can be broken into 4 quadrants. And this is roughly based on Ken Wilber's book, A Brief History of Everything. So this is truth. So there's personal truth, community truth, functional fit, and essentially scientific truth. We need something that works right here. A lot of problems we had with COVID response was science thought it was this way. Person didn't like it at all. I was dating a woman who was an ER doc, and she would have people just scream at her all day long. Very difficult. She'd say, I need to do an x-ray of your lungs. And they'd say, no, I'm not going to do it. And then finally the person left and came back, could barely breathe. I need to do an x-ray. And she'd swear at her, but then she got did the x-ray of the lung. So having an ergonomic problem that fits all of these criteria will assure that you have it. But if you don't ignore all these factors, then you won't have the optimal solution, and you might have a solution that ends up not working very well. So, summary, the ergonomic approach involves management commitment. The university is putting funds toward that. Having clear communication. If you have a problem, make it aware to somebody who can address it. There's personal responsibility. Just for your own well-being. If you're in pain, don't ignore it because it's not going to get better. Test new product and procedures. We're always trying to figure out if there's a new way to solve a problem and improve tools, task, person, environment. And you need to brace yourself because this could be your future. This person wanted me to take this photo. She had a position where she was slightly below the height of the work surface. It was a T-molded edge, and it permanently damaged her wrist just from typing. It's not worth it. So here are the links, and I think you'll be getting a PDF of this presentation. Very good. OSHA Lab Ergonomics, NIH, and AA. These have all changed from when I gave the presentation a while ago. So these websites will change. Our website is changing right now because we're now health, safety, and risk management as opposed to UHS before we were DHS. So we keep evolving. And we'll just do it. They give us paychecks, so we'll be here. And there's In fact, this is outdated right now. So now it's HS RN. Instead of UHS. And the other person that helped out with this presentation, although none of her pictures are on there or anything, because she helped out with the overconceptualization, was Margaret Velo. She's a physical therapist and she disagrees with me on certain things. So if you find things that I've told you and don't work for you, talk to her and you'll find somebody who say, hey, this is how she likes to do things. Any questions?
While there, people were, chairs, instead of using chairs, were using the balls. Or, to sit on at their office desks. Plus the benefits, use them, not use them, what's the thoughts on that?
Pluses are it really works the core. It helps, I think, if I were going to teach middle schoolers that like to wiggle and constantly be in motion, I think that's really good. Downside is there's a risk of falling. There's no back support, works your core all the time. There is a chair called the swapper chair. It was a pedestal, it was a really cool chair. You could sit down on it, wiggle around. It had go this way, that way, up and down. It was like a Tigger chair. Really wonderful for about an hour, and then you really get tired and it's not good for out the whole day. But some people at the university really, really like it, but we are not reimbursing for it at all. So those are the limitations. You had a question.
Yeah. I know you mentioned taking breaks in terms of blue light consumption.
Yeah.
People at their computer screens. Is that something that you're dealing with?
Yeah, that's really cool. There's a gentleman, and I'll have to give you, I can't remember exactly which university was. He gave a talk at our local industrial hygiene conference just on that topic. So here's how it works. During the first part of the day, blue light is really good because it wakes you up. Right at the end of the day, you want to shift over to yellow light. So what I do at home, in my bedroom, I have a yellow light bulb. So it's like it's telling my brain to say, hey, the sun is setting, it's time to go to sleep. And then so you can also switch over to goggles, and these are very inexpensive, about $15 from Amazon, that have a blue light filter. Everything looks weird because blue looks green because it takes out all the blue.
Is there a percentage recommendation of reduction in blue light that you suggest?
I'm not sure. With those, it essentially eliminates it.
I've seen like 30%, 25%.
You just modulate it to how alert you want to be. So you figure out, I need to be alerted. And then if you're doing an all-nighter, bam, blue light goes on, you're going to go work. And then if you want to sleep, bing, switch it right over to yellow. Fascinating research. But sure helped me. So if you're sleeping, black curtains. You don't want any extra light. You cover anything that has any light at all in the space. Before going to bed, I sometimes am not so good about occasionally. I'll look at my phone a little bit, but reading a book under yellow light is a great way to transition yourself and develop a positive sleep hygiene pattern. Especially if you're doing okay and you're getting your sleep in, fine. If you're not doing so well, for instance, I was nodding off at work. Okay, I'm not doing well. I have to change if I want to keep my job. So then I make the modification. And also, if you're driving home and nodding off, that's a existential threat. Other questions?
Are looking at some of this, and you mentioned the one woman with the braces on. Will it result in permanent damage, or can it be reversible? Or if it comes to a point, is physical therapy recommended? Or if it comes to a point, what are some options?
It's a big continuum. You catch it early, it's reversible. Get it to a certain point, it's not. Then if you opt for surgery, not a lot of positive benefits from it, especially if you revert to the same behaviors that caused it originally. I've had several people that got the surgery, things are, and they reverted back to the same behavior, and they told me that, and it just becomes re-injured. So the integrated approach to chronic pain management is from Dr. James Frickton. He is a dentist here at the University of Minnesota, and he also has a background in anesthesiology, and I can share the link with you for him. It's called Pact for Pain. But there are about 15 different, he would say 7, but 15 different things that go into pain. It has to do with sleep, has to do with diet, what you eat, how you move, what kind of pain medication you have, which ones are effective. The problem with the opioid crisis is that it works on a certain part of the pain part, but doesn't work on the other. So it works on the neurological, but doesn't reduce the inflammation. So NSAIDs typically for longer term are much more effective than something that tells your brain to ignore it. And if you combine that thing with other toxic chemicals, then you end up with people standing with their fist like this, holding it to the ground and not doing anything else. That's when you do the tranq plus the other ones. So you want to, I think the other part would be just be careful, thinking way back, of what you allow to become important in your life. If you choose carefully, you're going to be fine. But if you allow some other things to become very important in your life that are self-destructive, things can go south real quick, and there's no return. And there's also really, speaking of that, they do have classes here at the U, and they're offering training for people with the opioid overdose, and they give you the 3 syringes to inject into somebody if they're having a fentanyl overdose. And I would encourage you to take that class if you run into circumstances where that may happen. Anything else?
In regards to using your mouth and your wrists being all weird, like how effective are those mouse pads that include that little cushion? Like, does it still depend on your posture and the way that you're positioned? Because sometimes my mouse pad has one of those cushions, and sometimes I still feel like I've stopped my work and just stretch it because it's pinching and sore.
Yeah. So for instance, let's everyone look at the way she's sitting right now, just to put her on the spot. Okay, so she's got her elbows are below the height of the work surface. It's a brutal situation. Most individuals, if you had to continue with that particular spot, even if you had a pad for your wrist, you would be in pain. So we'd have to raise you up. The other part of the problem with the pad in front of the mouse is this. So you got the pad in front of the mouse, and you're going like this. See that? That's not good. You want to do this. Pivot from the elbow, not from the wrist. And you modify it, you take this away, you want to make sure your elbow's at the height of the work surface, so you don't need the pad. You're just pivoting off of here. If you have an armrest, it looks good. And if you can do it with a vertical, as opposed to here, you're even reducing the stress even more. Now, there was one where there was this little dot, so it's kind of like the Hindu culture has that little dot that we have right, like the third eye. They actually had a dot like that, and you would track it, and you would use that to maneuver the mouse around. I tried it for a while. It was weird. So that, and there's also one called a foot mouse, where you have the foot activated, so it maneuvers it around. Again, for some people with disabilities, that may be their only option, but typically we're stuck with this. Develop the ability to use both hands. So if one hand starts to wear out, get a little sore, switch over the other one, and try not to use the one that's built in, because that's really brutal. I can't do it.
Yeah, I can't either. I do.
Get a separate keyboard and mouse. Yeah.
There's a question on the chat box saying, where can one buy ergonomic chairs?
Excellent question. You can purchase it at the ergonomic showroom. Any chair that's there, you can, and we're gonna work with the vendors to make sure it works out that way, but you can get the university price for personal use. So that's a nice solution. The university will pay for one chair for you, and they don't care where you use it, at home or at work, but they aren't paying for two. Which we did some negotiating. We said, well, that's fair. So you figure out where you're working most often, you put your best chair there,
So each employee is technically entitled to
one chair,
chair. Oh,
Yeah. one good chair. The rest of it, the rest of it, you go to reuse and see, does the cylinder go, no, it keeps going down. Try to, no. And it usually goes chuck, 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 chuck. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I checked it out. I was searching one time and I went through about 100, well, about 50 to 60 chairs. There were about 2 that were worth anything. The rest should be, scrapped or given to somebody you detest.
So in a sort of lab setting, there might be multiple people using benches at times. Those are the chairs that would be best for those kind of environments. Because obviously people's body shapes might be different.
Yeah, if you can get one with a adjustable seat pan. And there's only a few of them that actually have that, but my colleague Greg Kassur actually went to Hayworth on that and said, you can have this slide. He said, no, we can't. I said, yes, you can. Balance works. And then they added it. So they have a lab one where it actually slides back and forth. The other one is to have a couple, it gets to be a little bit more expensive, but have one that have a couple different sizes of the chair. The other part is if it's for a short period of time, it doesn't matter as much. So a long period of time, then you need to have something that's more customized. And then, of course, if someone is working with disability services, then we really customize it, and that's that person's chair. But I think adding as much flexibility into the space as possible. The other one is if you have a fixed height spot and you can't change it, have at least a footrest that you can pull out. And there's one called the BioFit that goes from about 3 inches up to 8 inches high. And you can adjust it for the person that's actually in there. Works out really well. The other part is, and I've showed it several times, should be about 1.5 inches thick. None of this down here. If it's there, you rip it out. Any other questions? Think we're at time. Anything else?
We're good then, so can we just thank Neil for this?
Thank you.
And we'll have a recording, I guess, on the internet, so if anyone wants to watch it back.
Tomorrow.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, don't forget to fill out a survey. There was one on the table back here.
Yeah, these are the survey and get some feedback and suggestions for future some departmental safety. Thank you.
All right. And I'll let you stop the recording.
Oh, that's, yeah, anxiety. Yeah, so, yeah.
Help yourself.
So this, me, I'm used to that, but it's.
Okay, you did. Thanks.
So, looking for somebody who's.
I'm trying to, yeah, this is odd. I don't know why it's doing this.
Oh, thanks.
Give us some sort of feedback about it and things that. That's the stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of means.